Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the newspaper analysis, which is a part of our Roznama. Now, yesterday, there was one very important thing that has come up in news and which is very exam relevant, and that is the government has unveiled its new policy to tackle terrorism, or the new anti-terror policy. All right. Now, this particular anti-terror policy, which is named Prahar, naturally you all can see that all the letters are in capital. So this is also an acronym or an abbreviation. All right, that everything that the government does. Now, before we actually dive into what Prahar is, one thing that last year when Operation Sindoor took place, just after the Pahalgam terror attack, and during the Operation Sindoor period, the government had unveiled its new security doctrine. Okay, so I want you all to keep in mind the security doctrine as well when you keep in mind Prahar. Okay, now this new security doctrine, this basically talked about, or through this, the government had three basic provisions or three basic visions under its ambit of zero tolerance for terrorism. Okay, zero tolerance for terrorism. And what were the three basic ambits of the new security doctrine is that there would be no difference between terror sponsors and terrorists. No difference between terror sponsors and terrorists. This was one, in the sense that, for example, if Pakistan is undertaking terror activities, then so naturally it is a terrorist country. But if Pakistan is not directly involved in any terror activity, but is letting terrorist organizations live and expand their bases in Pakistan with adequate information, then you are equivalent to a terrorist country. Okay, that simply implies that there is going to be no distinction between terror sponsors and terrorists. All right, then another was that there would be no tolerance for nuclear blackmail, which was always one of the uphands for Pakistan, where if nothing else was left, then Pakistan would always say things like Pakistan can undertake a terror attack against India. Okay, so nuclear attack against India. So India is, although India has a policy of no first use in terms of nuclear weapons, but then India will not stoop down under pressure if the other country is threatening India on terms of nuclear retaliation. Okay, and the third one that has been undertaken is that decisive retaliation. Okay, decisive retaliation, as was seen during Operation Sindoor, that that it was just 14 days after that India retaliated with decisive action to root out terror bases in Pakistan. So we did not waste too much of time. We did not leave it to too much of pondering to delay action. We were very quick to take actions on it. Okay. So aligning with this new security doctrine, the Union Home Minister has released the country's first anti-terror policy. Okay. You need to remember that it is the first anti-terror policy. And then quickly looking into the 7 pillars of Prahar. P stands for prevention, which is prevention of terror attacks. S stands for swift coordination responses to extremist violence. Then enhancing internal capacities, upholding human rights and rule of law based processes, countering radicalization, aligning and shaping of global counterterrorism recovery and resilience through a whole society approach. All right, and this Prahar initiative also seeks to enhance security in terms of newer security threats as well, like that of cyber security. Okay, so do keep it in mind, this is important. Then coming to the next piece of news is that now we have 8 more cheetahs, and this time these cheetahs to the Kunho National Park have been brought in from Botswana. So in November 2025, the Indian government had signed a third memorandum of understanding with a third African country, that is Botswana, to bring back, to translocate cheetahs from Africa into India. Okay. Now, why is India undertaking this translocation of cheetahs? Is because India has Project Cheetah, which was launched in the year 2022. Okay. And cheetahs became extinct in India in 1952, and since then we were trying to bring back cheetahs into India. And in 2022, we launched Project Cheetah. And under this, initially, we had signed 2 MOUs with 2 countries, Namibia and South Africa. And both of these countries had sent their cheetahs 8 and 12. And now 8 more cheetahs are to be given from Botswana into India. And this will also be taken to Punho National Park. Now, Punho National Park was the first site where translocation of cheetahs took place in the country. And then naturally today, as of now, we have 46 cheetah species in the country. So cheetah population in the country, not species. So naturally, the Punho National Park was becoming overcrowded. So the government also undertook shifting of cheetahs from Punho National Park to other national parks. The first national park where cheetah was shifted was the Gandhi National Park. This is also in Madhya Pradesh, Gandhi Sagar National Park, and now a second one has, or a third one in totality has also been outlined, which is the Nora Dehi National Park. All right. So all of this information is very important. Do keep in mind, just 2 days back, a new cheetah, that is Gamini, has also given birth to new cubs. Okay. So do keep the information in mind. All right. Okay. Now the National Roundtable Conference of Election Commission of India and State Election Commissioners has begun on 24th of February. That is today only. Where is it being held? It is being held in New Delhi. All right. So the Election Commission of India, along with all the state election commissioners, are going to meet in New Delhi to undertake discussions on sharing of technology through the ECI Net platform that the Election Commission of India had launched 2 days before the National Voters' Day on 22nd of January. Also, they will be talking about sharing of EVMs, sharing of electoral rolls and other electoral processes. All right. Who is going to be participating in it? We have the Chief Election Commissioner, the Election Commissioners of India, and other Election Commission of India officials. We also have state election commissioners of all states and union territories. We also have chief electoral officers of all 36 states and UTs, and legal and technical experts of state election commissioners. All right. Then this provides you information with respect to the constitutional provisions for them. So we have Article 324 of the Constitution, which provides for constitution of the Election Commission of India. And then we have Articles 243K, which calls for, and 243ZA, which calls for establishment of state election commissions to undertake elections to the local bodies, that is panchayats in rural areas and municipalities in urban areas. Okay. So do keep it in mind. Today you will also get this in the GK top 5. So keep the information in mind. It is very, very important. Then the Allahabad High Court has given a very wonderful say, and the High Court has said that interfaith marriages are not prohibited under the UP conversion law. Okay. So the Uttar Pradesh government had brought out a conversion law in 2021, and as per the provisions of this conversion law, it simply sought to regulate religious conversions on grounds which were maybe unknown to the person who is getting converted, or somebody who is, forcefully being converted into some other religion. So that was supposed to be regulated by the 2021 Act. However, the Allahabad High Court in this particular verdict, or why was this actually given, was because the Allahabad High Court had sought or had given protections to 12 interfaith live-in partners, and the High Court upheld that everybody has this right in Uttar Pradesh as of now, because we don't have UCC in Uttar Pradesh, and the live-in couples can live in together, and living together does not contribute or does not imply as religious conversion under the UP conversion law of 2021. All right. And then also the bench went ahead to highlight Article 21, where every individual has the right to freedom of choice and has the right to choose their probable partners. Okay, so just a few days back also we had one such similar information in news where Gujarat had made it important that parental consent is required for getting married. Okay, so that was also against the freedom of choice. So do keep this in mind. Okay, all right. Then we have the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who's on a quest to visit India, and not only India, he will also be visiting two other countries, Japan as well as Australia. Okay, now why is this significant? It is because naturally we are undertaking massive bilateral dealings these days, and this Canadian Prime Minister who had also voiced for a middle path for the developing countries such as India and countries which is similar to Canada to, evolve their own strategic autonomy policies, doing away with their dependence on the United States of America. And this came to be interpreted as the Carney Doctrine at the World Economic Forum's annual summit in annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. All right. Now he is going to be visiting these two countries along with India, and the relation between these two countries and India is that all these three countries plus US, they form a part of an international quadrilateral grouping known as Quad. Okay, and Canada is not a part of it, but Canada is now reliving or living and trying to evolve its own strategic autonomy. So in lieu of that, or just to get access to it, he is visiting all of these Quad countries to foster or to forge its own independent trade dealings with these countries. Okay, so we will be looking into it in details when the meeting actually concludes. All right, so they are looking to discuss new partnerships in trade, energy, technology, artificial intelligence, culture, defense, etc. Also, this is pretty significant because during the prime ministerialship of the previous Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, the relations between India and Canada had gone a little downhill because it was seen that India had played a dominant role in the killing of Nijjar, who was a Khalistani separatist residing in Canada. Although India has always distanced itself from such allegations, but the catching of Gupta, the person who was actually involved in the killing of that person, has further drawn or pointed fingers on the Indian government's involvement in killing of the Khalistani separatists. So on such background, in such an ambit, also this particular visit is significantly important. Okay, all right. Then House panel questions, timing of PM's Israel visit. Now the Prime Minister is visiting Israel, and this is going to be his first visit in 9 years, and naturally comes after the 2023 Israel-Palestine war. It was after this war actually began. This is the Prime Minister's first visit there. Now we have significantly good relations with Israel. We have a lot of technological exchanges in terms of defense, as well as in terms of irrigation and water related technologies, and our relations with Israel are fairly fine, which can also be, depicted or seen from that India has never outrightly condemned Israeli actions on the Gaza region, although India has condemned inhumane actions, all right, and has always talked about a peaceful conciliation between relations and treaty negotiations, and always talked about dialogue, diplomacy rather than resorting to war. Okay, so amid such circumstances after the war, and then straining of relations between the West Asian regions and US, this is pretty significant, and they've actually asked that what is the purpose of the Prime Minister's visit there. So do go through this article, it is an important one. Also, this particular visit now, that the Prime Minister is going to Israel alone and not visiting Palestine. Previously, in the 1990s, after we gave recognition to the state of Palestine in 1988, India had a policy towards Israel and Palestine, which was known as the hyphenation policy. Okay, now what was the hyphenation policy? Israel hyphen Palestine. So what was the hyphenation policy? The hyphenation policy simply implied that India is going to have equal relations with both these countries. India is not going to favor one or disfavor another one. All right. This implied that if India was visiting Israel, India would automatically visit Palestine. But when the present Prime Minister came to power, so in around 2014, 2015, this hyphenation policy culminated into dehyphenation. Okay. Now, dehyphenation here simply implies that Israel and Palestine are no longer conjoined with a hyphenation, and India can pursue an independent policy with respect to Israel and Palestine. That it is no longer mandatory for India to compulsorily visit Israel if India visit Palestine if India is visiting Israel. Okay. All right. Then very important, this one, the Lok Sabha speaker has formed friendship groups with 64 nations. All right. So Om Birla has constituted parliamentary friendship groups with 64 countries and appointed senior opposition leaders to head over a dozen of them. All right. Now, what is this particular friendship group? It is just established to have more inter-parliamentary discussions between the Indian Parliament and parliaments of other nations. How many nations? 64 nations, just to foster better relations between the countries. Okay. Here, the same piece of news in the Hindu, constituted friendship groups aimed at strengthening inter-parliamentary cooperation and legislative dialogues. Total 64. It's a good piece of news. Then yesterday, it was decided to celebrate Rajaji Utsav, and in accordance with the Rajaji Utsav, it was decided that a bust of Edwin Lutyens, the person who is considered as the architect of Delhi, along with Herbert Baker, his bust was placed in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This bust would be removed and will be replaced with the bust of C. Rajagopalachari. Okay. Now, C. Rajagopalachari is fondly known as Rajaji, and he was instrumental in a large number of pre-independent dealings, one of the most famous one being the CR formula, which was propounded by him in 1944 to end the deadlock with between the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, and to gain quick independence from the British. But then naturally that went to the drains. The second thing about him is that he was the first and the first Indian Governor General and the last Governor General of India from 1948 after Lord Mountbatten till 1950. After 1950, the Constituent Assembly elected the first President of India on 24th of January 1950, and with the coming in or election of the first President, the office of the Governor General was done away with. Okay. Then another thing, that he also served as the Home Minister after the death of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel from 1950 to 51. Then from 1952 to 1954, he served as the Chief Minister of Madras or Tamil Nadu. Then he had certain significant differences with the Congress party, and he established his own independent party, also known as Independent Party or Swatantra Party, in 1959. Okay. Then eventually passed away. For everything statesmanship that he undertook, he was also awarded the first Bharat Ratna in India in 1954. Okay. Now, why did the government sought to remove the bust of Edwin Lutyens from the Rashtrapati Bhavan and replace it with Rajaji? Because the government on 75 years of India's independence undertook Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and also now has sought to de-anglicize everything from India or to remove the colonial mindset. So naturally, a number of initiatives were undertaken, like renaming of the Rajpath to Kartavya Path, and also renaming of certain regions in the Rashtrapati Bhavan to Ashok Mandap and the like. Darbar Hall and Ashok Hall were renamed as Gantantra Mandap and Ashok Mandap respectively. Rajpath in 2022 was renamed as Kartavya Path. All right, so all this was undertaken to just de-anglicize everything that was in India, to put an end to the colonial mindset. Okay. Also keep in mind that Delhi was undertaken or constructed by the Britishers in the 1920s, and they appointed two architects. One was Edwin Lutyens and Herbert Baker. Okay, they were the two people who have been credited with undertaking the architectural development of Delhi. And then that entire architectural style that is followed in Delhi is known as Indo-Saracenic. Okay, Indo-Saracenic style simply implies that an amalgamation of the British Gothic architecture with Indian Islamic architecture. This is known as Indo-Saracenic, also known as neoclassical style of architecture. Do keep it in mind. All right. Then another article on how the US, Iran says that US talks have yielded encouraging signals. So Iran and US are on the negotiating table right now in Geneva, and they're trying to strike a deal again amongst each other and to do away with all the tensions that have evolved between the two countries since 2016 when Donald Trump came to power last year. Okay, so you can go through this one. Then just an allegation by the president of Bangladesh. And why have I taken this up? Only because I wanted to flag the name of the Bangladeshi president. His name is Muhammad Shahabuddin. Okay, Muhammad Shahabuddin has basically criticized the interim government led by Muhammad Yunus, and he said that Muhammad Yunus, as much as right now he is portraying that everything should be undertaken as per the constitutional provisions, etc. He himself, when he was leading the interim government for the past 9-10 months, he did not follow the constitutional precedents at all. There were a lot of instances where whosoever is leading the government, he is required to undertake, inform the president about the doings of the government. If the leader is undertaking any outside visit, international visit, then he has to come back and inform the president of its grounds and everything. But no such things were undertaken by Muhammad Yunus, and he said that he himself was not following the constitution at all, and he tried to do away with a lot of constitutional provisions which naturally he could not do. Okay, and Muhammad Yunus was administering the country for 18 months. All right. Okay. Then yesterday the BAFTA awards were given. Very quickly, you need to remember, before we get into who won who, what is the full form of BAFTA? That is important. It is British Academy of Films and TV Arts. Okay. Do remember the full form: British Academy of Film and TV Arts. It was established in the year 1947, and the first awards were given in 1949. Okay, why is it important? It is important because an Indian movie known as Boong, okay, an Indian movie Boong has won a BAFTA in the category of Best Children's and Family Film. Okay, Boong is a Manipuri movie which is produced by Farhan Akhtar. Okay, here you can see the team. The director is Lakshmi Priya Devi, producers Alex, Farhan Akhtar, and Ritesh Sidhwani. Okay, they are the people who have put this movie together, and this particular movie has won an award from India. Then naturally the person who's directed it, she belongs to Manipur, and she has on an international forum asked people to pray for restoration of peace in Manipur, which has been in chaos for the past 1-2 years now, 1.5 years, since violent strikes, differences, clashes broke out between two Manipuri tribes, Kuki-Zo and Meiteis. Okay, now coming back to the winners. Leading actress was won by Jessie Buckley for Hamnet. Best film, One Battle After Another, Director also for One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson. Outstanding British film, Hamnet. Lead actor, Robert Amario for I Swear. Supporting actor, Sean Penn, One Battle After Another. Supporting actress is Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners. Original screenplay for Sinners. Sinners is important this year for Oscars also. Maximum nominations by any movie. Then adapted screenplay, One Battle After Another. Film not in English language. Sentimental value. Animated film we have Zootropolis 2, Zootopia 2 in the US and some other countries. Documentary, Mr. Nobody Against Putin. Original score, Sinners. And best children's and family film we have Boong from India. Okay. Okay, then this is a repetition of the previous article that Mark Carney is set to visit India for 3 days. All right. Okay, then this particular article is on Mexico, and Mexico is one country which has a lot of drug cartels being run there. All right. One such drug cartel is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Jalisco New Generation Cartel, which was led by this person, Nemesio Oseguera, who was commonly known as El Mencho. Okay, so El Mencho, now around 60 years old, has been killed by the troops of Mexico. Okay, so naturally he was one of the most powerful drug lords and undertook illicit drug trade, not only in Mexico but outside. So do keep his name in mind and go through the articles. Okay, then the finance minister has launched National Monetization Pipeline 2.0 with proceeds from asset monetization seen at 16.72 lakh crore over the 5 years that started in April 2025. Okay, so now asset monetization plan 2025-30 announced in the union budget last year and exceeds the figure of 10 lakh crore which was mentioned therein. Okay, what is this particular program? It is simply an infrastructure development program where the government seeks to undertake massive infrastructure development through bringing in money from investments, commercial auctions, securitization of cash flows, etc. Okay, so do go through it. It is an important scheme and details of it will be given to you in the top 5. Okay. All right, then coming to the editorials for today. This particular article on the AI Impact Summit, and this AI Impact Summit basically it's a welcoming article which says that you know how did India did pretty well in this, where India has undertaken this entire AI Impact Summit, being the first global country to host it, and then coming out with the Delhi Declaration, which was endorsed and signed by 88 countries. One of the reasons for its getting signed in with such a large number was simply because it was not at all binding in nature. It was absolutely not binding, but it was absolutely voluntary in nature. All right, and also the amount of people that showed up here showed that how many Indians, the number of Indians that actually showed up for this particular summit, it just showed that how keen India is to, you know, adopt the artificial intelligence technologies. But then there are many challenges also that India is facing in this sector, like deploying and diffusing technology with very little capital and infrastructure as of now. Then also finding a place in the global AI ecosystems, which India is not very well adept along these days. Also, although we have, you know, undertaken good development of data centers in the country, but then again, the entire cost of developing graphic processing units, etc. And then one of the major problems being that of digital divide in the country. All these are the gray areas that India has to counter before actually effectively taking lead in artificial intelligence. Okay, then this particular article basically talks about the development or harnessing of green ammonia in the country and how can the government do so. So what is green ammonia? Green ammonia is basically harnessing of ammonia which is produced by combining nitrogen with green hydrogen. What is green hydrogen? Green hydrogen is harnessing of hydrogen by splitting water molecules using renewable energy. So the government naturally has a program known as the National Green Hydrogen Mission. The Green Hydrogen Mission, which was launched by the government in 2023, and it is for a 3-year period. Okay, oh God, 2023, and it is for a 7-year period, sorry. So the entire scheme is till 2030, and by 2030, what the government seeks to do is produce 5 million metric ton of green hydrogen per annum. Okay, that is per year. Also, 125 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity, create 6 lakh jobs, and also bring in investments worth rupees 8 lakh crores. Okay, so this is what they want to do, and one of the components to do this is site of the green hydrogen mission, which is strategic intervention for green hydrogen transitions. Okay, so just this much is what you have to keep in mind. You don't have to get into the details of the figures. All right, the term green hydrogen ammonia is important. All right, now this article talks about rendering inheritance rights to tribal women. This article draws our attention to the fact that tribal women in the country do not have any specific act aligned to them which gives them equal rights in their parents' properties. All right, unlike the Hindu Succession Act, which was brought in 1956, which gives equal inheritance rights in their parents' properties to both to girls as well as boys, but this does not equal to tribal women's rights. Why? Because tribal women, they have different culture, tradition, and naturally different religion. Although the Supreme Court in one of the verdicts did say that if tribal women, they take up Hinduism, convert to Hinduism, leave up their tribal cultures, traditions, practices, then they will get their inheritance rights under the Hindu Succession Act of 1956. But then that was further not given recognition to, and now the article says that that when we have articles like Article 14 in the Constitution, then naturally, if no such right is there for the tribal women, then this is the cue for the government to formulate such a right to ensure that even tribal women have equal access to their equal inheritance. Okay. All right. Then this article, a good and a very important article, which talks about the independence of the Election Commission. Now, why is this in news? Is because there was a motion which was talked about by the opposition to bring about removal of the Chief Election Commissioner of India. Why? Because it was seen that the elections in the country are not free and fair. Of late, massive debates on it. The second thing is that the current special intensive revision exercise, which is removing large number of voters from the electoral list. All right. So under such circumstances, it was said that the election commissioner of India the chief election commissioner must be removed or impeached. All right. Then the article moves ahead to say things like how is a chief election commissioner appointed. So we have the 2023 Act that was enacted, known as Chief Election Commissioner and Other Election Commissioners Appointment, Conditions of Office and Terms of Office Act 2023, which replaces the 1991 Act. And this act simply says that previously the Chief Election Commissioner was appointed on the recommendation of the majority party to the president. Now this Chief Election Commissioner and other commissioners will be appointed on the recommendation of a 3-member committee. The 3-member committee is inclusive of the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition, and the Union Cabinet Minister. Now again, out of these 3 members, 2 members are going to be from the majority, 1 is from the opposition. So naturally a very imbalanced structure. So then again, pointing fingers against the transparency of the appointment process. Then also talks about the constitutional mandate. Article 324 creates this particular body which undertakes elections through 6 bodies: the president, vice president, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, legislative assemblies and legislative councils in the country. They hold office for 6 years or 65 years, whichever is earlier, and they can be removed along the same process and methods as that of impeachment of a Supreme Court judge, which is a pretty difficult method. So naturally, removal will be read along with Article 124(4) of the Constitution. That is, the grounds are going to be the same: proven misbehavior and incapacity, and the removal process will be guided by the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. All right, so the removal process will be similar to that of the judge of a Supreme Court. So you can go through the provisions of the removal process. That is a 100-member adopted resolution in the Lok Sabha must be submitted to the Speaker, or 50-member in the Rajya Sabha to the chairman. Then the Speaker or chairman may admit the motion, may not admit the motion. If the motion is admitted, then the Speaker or chairman is supposed to constitute a 3-member body, that is inclusive of the Chief Justice of India, an independent jurist, and the Chief Justice of any High Court in the country. And then they are going to inquire into the allegations of the they are going to inquire into whatever are the basic causes or reasons for which that impeachment is going to be undertaken. And then this committee is going to submit their reports in the House. Then a voting will take place in the House. If majority vote in favor, then the person will be impeached. All right. In case the ground is of mental incapacity, then naturally a medical examination by a medical board appointed by the Speaker or chairman will be undertaken to do so. Okay. Then there is a political angle to it. The political angle simply implies that the opposition feels that the elections are not just and that. Okay. So do go through it. It's a good one and a pretty important one. Okay, then this one, a pretty interesting article which says that there are 2 popular prediction market platforms, Polymarket and Kalshi, which undertake bidding not only on things like, you know, gambling and etc., bets on sports or horses, but they also bet on day-to-day questions like, what is Donald Trump going to do today? How many tweets is Elon Musk going to post on X today? The possible return of Jesus Christ. So on very mundane things also they undertake bidding, which is naturally, you know, does not entail something very positive. Okay, and of course pitches in a lot of ethical and legal constraints. So do go through it. Then Naxalism, again, because the government has a target of rooting it out by 31st of March 2026. So the article draws contrast as to that Naxalism ends, but work of democracy must go on, and that is simply that although the Red Corridor has come to an end, and the entire reason behind the development of the Red Corridor was that the people felt neglected. They felt that their basic rights were not giving recognition to, and the government was not doing things for their welfare. All right. And then right now we have large number of Maoist leaders who've been eradicated. So do go through this article, good one. Then this article written by Yogendra Yadav is again a take on the report submitted by Justice Joseph Curran on rethinking on the grounds of federalism in India, and why or how the grounds of federalism should be seen into, and India should now transition into a proper federal government and not a quasi-federal government that India was or had to take up on pretext of a union of states or holding together of states and not coming together of federation. And why did India have to have a centralized federal structure or a quasi-federal structure? Simply because we had lots of diversities, and the Indian government felt that there can be instances that these smaller pockets might want to secede from the Indian Union. So such things should not happen. That is why we became a union of states, a holding together federation, a quasi-federal structure. But now he says that the Indian government and India at large must, actually be happy about the fact that we are not a melting pot, that everything can't be melted and made homogeneous in India. We are a salad bowl. Everybody has its own uniqueness, identity, distinctiveness, and that is what makes India apart from other countries in the world, and this should be our strength. And it is on these lines that the government should have confidence on the states in the country, that the states also want to bring about development in the country, and they don't want to bring down the national the center's any policy program, etc., and they also want to work for the betterment of the country. So along such lines, he's also basically talked of the fact that more autonomy must be given to the states in the country. Okay, then this particular article, again, a very well put in article with respect to everything that has happened in the AI Impact Summit. All right, so it was the world's largest and most historic AI summit. The New Delhi Declaration was a major success with 88 countries and organizations signing it, including countries like US, China, Russia, UK, France. India laid out massive shared visions for collaborative, trusted and inclusive AI, basically talking about democratizing artificial intelligence. That was India's major aim and agenda. Then everything was voluntary in nature, nothing was binding. That is why it was adopted by so many people. Then changing themes from safety to trade. This simply implies that when these artificial intelligence summits actually began in 2023 in the United Kingdom, then more emphasis was laid on the safe use, the ethical use of artificial intelligence. And now the same, it took place in United Kingdom and Seoul along the same principles of ethical and safe uses of artificial intelligence. Then it transitioned to developing infrastructure, harnessing collaboration on artificial intelligence in Paris, and then it was carried forward in India also this year, where India has very adamantly talked about democratizing artificial intelligence, that is making artificial intelligence accessible to everybody in the country. Okay, then also certain glitches that did take place during the artificial intelligence summit in India. Lot of traffic jams, lot of delays, the city was not well organized during this entire program. The speakers reached late, they couldn't go back, they had to walk long distances, and then naturally one of the universities who showcased an imported dog from China, which was naturally a major blow to India's aspirations. Okay, so these were a lot of glitches that did take place. Then major investment commitments. We had major leaders like Emmanuel Macron, Antonio Guterres, who were present here. Investment commitments over $250 billion for infrastructure and $20 billion for venture capital. Deep tech investments were undertaken. We had indigenous organization Sarvam AI that announced it had trained 30 billion parameter model and 105 billion billion parameter model from scratch. So these were the various, well brought in, the good things about the Artificial Impact Summit. It is a pretty much balanced article. Do go through it. Okay. Then this particular article is on India's bid to become a full-time member to International Energy Agency. The International Energy Agency was created in 1974 in the face of the global oil crisis that took place after the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And this International Energy Agency basically did not wish to export oil to all those countries who were supporting Israel during this particular war. So naturally, it was inclusive of those countries in West Asia, which were major oil producing countries. Okay. Now India is wanting to be a part of International Energy Agency, and India has been submitting its dossiers since many years. And in 2017, India was made an associate member of the International Energy Agency. Since 2023, India has been pushing to become a full-time member of this particular agency. But the clause is that members of OECD can become members of International Energy Agency, but they are still looking into it, and they've made welcoming statements for India to be a full-time member of International Energy Agency. And to do so, they will have to amend its charter. What is the charter? That OECD countries can become part of it. What is OECD? OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, founded in 1961, headquartered in Paris, has 38 members, mostly all developed countries, okay, and democracies. Okay, then this particular article shows that now the entire trade deal that India and US had negotiated is now to be renegotiated. Why? Because the Supreme Court has scrapped his tariffs, and they've said that the president is not empowered to do so. Only the Congress can do so. So he invoked another act, which was the Trade Act of 1974, and under that only a maximum of 15% tariff can be imposed on countries, and that too only for 150 days. So naturally, it had imposed a reciprocal tariff of 18% on India, which automatically has now reduced to 15%. So renegotiations of it have to be undertaken. Also, India had incorporated a clause in the interim agreement which said that if there is any change in the tariff rates, etc., of either of the two countries, then they can modify its commitments. So this was included by India. Now there has been a change, so they can modify their entire commitments. Okay. Okay. Then this we've already done, that the Canadian president is Prime Minister set to visit India on 27th of February. Then today, 24th of February, marks the 4th anniversary. Okay, Malab, it has completed 4 years, marks the 4th anniversary of Russia-Ukraine war. All right. So do keep in mind that United Nations Secretary General warned on Monday that rule of force was spreading as powerful trample on international law. Human rights are under full-scale attack around the world. Okay. Then today, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will travel to Kyiv to mark 4 years since the beginning of Russia-Ukraine war. Okay. Then Kim Jong-un, the Korean dictator, has been re-elected as the leader of the ruling party amidst nuclear buildup. Okay, do keep in mind. And he has also outlined his political and military goals for the next 5 years. Okay, what is the ruling party's name? It is the Workers' Party. Do keep it in mind. All right. Then the International Criminal Court has also opened or undertaking pre-trials for former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who has been facing 3 counts of crimes against humanity for deadly anti-drug crackdowns when he was in office. Okay, ICC is the International Criminal Court, which is located in The Hague, Netherlands. Okay, so this was all for today, and I'll see you tomorrow with the. Thank you.